Hi students, welcome to this video session. My name is Samuel Chukwuemeka. In this video session, we shall discuss some terms in Visual Basic programming, and we shall write a simple application to begin with. So we open up the VB. Now, it is highly recommended that you view the first video before you view this one, and it is also recommended that you view the videos in the playlist in order so that you will understand a lot about Visual Basic. So when you open up the VB, it will be good if you look at this, quickly create your first application. If you want, you can click on it and study those and try creating your application yourself. And you can also, we want to click on a new project. And when we click on new project, by default, it goes to a Windows Forms application. Like we said in the previous video, we are interested in writing desktop applications, Windows Forms desktop apps. Applications, the short form is apps. So it says here the name is Windows Application 1. Now, as you can see, there is no space in the naming. When you name your project, you should not put any space. So what we can rename this, and we can write it in this. Actually, with this project, before you begin any project on VB, you should have in mind what you want to write. So in this video, we are going to write a simple project to start with. Okay, we're going to write a simple project, and I want to write one of my personal quotes. If you go to my website, I have some quotes on my website, and I want to write one of my personal quotes as an application. So I will just write a personal quote 1. You must not put 1. You can just put personal quote, you know, but this is just one of my personal quotes, so I just put 1. And after that, you click OK. So it opens to this window. Let's quickly review this. If you look at this toolbox, here you will see all Windows Forms. If you click on it, it will expand. If you click on it again, it will collapse. Here you will see the common controls. Already the common controls, it expands by default. If you click on it again, it collapses. And you also see other ones, containers, menus, and toolbars. If you click data, anyone you click on the first time, it expands. If you click it again, it will collapse. Now, we are interested in common controls, which expands by default, and that is under the toolbox. So we have mentioned controls. What are controls? Controls, as you can see, are tools that you can use to create objects in a Visual Basic program. So these are the tools we can use to create objects. Now I have mentioned objects. What is an object? An object is an element that you create in a Visual Basic program with a control in the toolbox. As we move along, as we move further, we will see that an object is an instance of a class. And also we see that an object supports events, properties, and methods. We are going to discuss those one at a time. Then here you will see the designer window. Here you will see the properties window. The properties window. And then if you look at this, when you point your mouse at this, there is a pop-up title that comes up. Like this is a new project. This is open file, add new item, save form. So this one is start debugging. When you want to compile and run your project, you click on this, start debugging. You can also press the F5 key on your keyboard. This is stop debugging. Of a very great importance to us is the Solution Explorer. And as you can see, it comes up when you press the Control, Alt, and L key of your keyboard. So now we have the Designer window, we have the Solution Explorer, we have the Toolbox, and we have the Properties window. This makes up the IDE. Remember, we talked about IDE in the first video. Integrated Development Environment, or Interactive Development Environment. So you have the complete set of tools to create a software, to develop a software application. Now, before we begin, there are three things that we will note when we get started. We've mentioned the controls, we've mentioned objects, and we say that an object supports events, properties, and methods. What are properties? Properties, as you can see it under Properties window, is a characteristic of an object. As you can see, it has several properties here. Text property, image property, background color, auto size, color, font, and the rest of them. So we shall look at all these one step at a time. And as we move on, we shall introduce more terms and explain those terms. Okay? There are three basic things that you want to do when you're writing an application in Visual Basic. You want to create the user interface. You want to create the user interface. Let me make this bigger. That's the first thing. The user interface is when the user sees it, the appearance of the application is the interface. And then you want to set the properties. And after that, you now want to write the program code. So we are going to do this one at a time, and as we do each and every one of them, we will see more terms and discuss those. So this is the designer window, and this is the interface here. And as you look, if you look at this interface, you see that if you look at the properties window, like we said, property is a characteristic of the object. The name of this form is Form 1. That's the name, Form 1. And it has a text. Text is also Form 1. Now, the name is a property, text is a property. And these are two different things. Now, I want to change the text is like the title of the application. I don't want it to be Form 1. I want it to be personal quote. And I click it, I press enter, personal quote. Now I press the enter key. Or even if you don't press the enter key, if you, after typing it, if you click outside here, it will change it. Now let me make this bigger. So I just point my mouse here until I see this arrow. I drag this a bit, and I also drag this downwards. The next thing I want to do is that I want to add my picture. I also want to add a label, and I want to add a button. The way I want to do this is that I want it to be that if somebody clicks on the button, then my quote will appear in the label. Now, let me repeat what I want to do. I want to add my picture, then I want to add a label, and I want to add a button. These are the objects I want to add. When I run it, when I run the application, you will not see my picture when I run it, when the form loads. But when you now click on the button, then you will see my picture, and then you will see my personal quote. That is the way I want it to be. So let me first begin by adding my picture. So like as we talked about this, these are the objects we want to use. So you can either click here and drag to the form, or you can double click. The next one we are going to double click, so any one you choose. So this is a picture box. That is what I dragged, picture box. And you now drag this object onto the form. If you go to the properties window, you see that the name is picture box 1. If you click on the form here, you see that the name is still form 1. It's just that the text is what we changed. There are two different things, like we said before. So I still click on the picture box. It's still picture box 1. Okay, now the image, I go to the image, there is none. I want to add my picture. So I'll click on this ellipsis, these 3 dots. It's called ellipsis. I click on it. And there is no picture in this project resource file, but I have an option here to import the picture. So I click on import. When I import it, I go to my pictures here. I go to pictures, and I have this picture already. I click on it. This is the one I want to use. I click open, and there it is. Then I click OK. When I click OK, I now see my picture. I just want to resize it to the actual size, 150 by 150. And I want to position it here. So I have it here. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to have a label, you know, when such that when you click the button, then the quote will appear on the label. Now, clicking a button, for instance, is what we call an event procedure. I've talked about, now I've mentioned some names now. Procedures are typically executed when certain events occur, such as when you click a button. And when a procedure is associated with a particular object and an event, it is called an event handler or an event procedure. Now you ask me, what is a procedure? We say that procedures are executed when events occur. But what is a procedure? Procedure, when we have program statements that are used together to perform some action, those program statements are grouped in a programming construct called a procedure. You will now ask me, what are program statements? Program statements are the codes that will clearly spell out what the program should do at each step. So Those is just codes that will spell out what the program will do. And like we said, event procedure is executed when you manipulate an object, such as when you click a button. So what I want to do is, when I run this, I won't see this picture. I won't see it. But when I click on a button, then I will see the picture, and then I would see my quote. Okay? That's what I want to do. Now, assuming you run this now, assuming you run it, you will see the picture when you run it. So let's close it. But by the time we do it, you will still understand what I'm saying. So let's go now and drag a label. I want a label. In this case, let's double click. When you double click, it says label 1. If you go now to the properties, the name is label 1. And the text is label 1. Now, I don't want anything on this label. Some people might use a text box, but I don't want to use a text box. Text box is mainly for inputting data. I want the output to be on the label instead. Now, if I delete this text because I don't want it and I press enter, there is not, you see this is a small thing. It doesn't give me any chance to expand it. So what I want to do now is I go to the auto size property, and I make this false. When I make this false, then I can drag this. I can drag it. Now, did you notice something? When you click inside the box, the label disappears, you see? But when you click again, it comes up. But when you click inside again, it disappears. Now, that's a problem. So how do we fix this? How do we correct it? We look at we have to put, if we have text box, we won't have this problem. But like I said, I don't want text box. So if we are going to do it with a label, the output to appear in the label, what we are going to do is we go to the border style property. It is set to none. That's why there's no border style. That's why it disappears when you click outside of it. So what we want to do now is we go to the border style property and we set it to either fixed single or fixed 3D. If we click fixed single, it gives us this. You see, it doesn't disappear anymore. And I kind of want to make this to be a little bit bigger. It doesn't disappear anymore. But let's try fixed 3D. Border style, we click fixed 3D. And that looks better. If you ask me, this looks better if you ask me. So this is the label here. This is where I want my personal quote to appear when I click on a button. So the next thing I need is a button. Remember, we are still creating the user interface and setting the properties. These are the two things we are doing at the same time. So I need a button here. I can double click and it gives me button 1. And this button 1, I don't want it to be button 1. I want to rename it. If you look, the name is button 1 and the text is button 1. But they don't mean the same thing, okay? Now, the text, I want it to be my personal quote. That's what I want. And I click on it. So I want to expand it so it will appear, well, my personal quote. Now, I want this to be bigger. You know, I want it to be bigger. And I want to, I don't want this background. Now, assuming you run this now, this is the way it will appear. my personal quote, and you see this. But I want to change this background color, and I want to change the font here to be bigger. These are setting the properties. So let me start by clicking on the form and going to the background color, back color. Okay, back color, you click on it. When you click on it, you have it by default system. You also have web and you have custom. You want to use custom. Now I'm looking at this now, and I want my background color to be olive, custom olive color. My personal quote, I want to change this. This is button. This is button 1. So what I want to do is I want to change the font. I click on the font. When you click on it, then you click on the ellipsis. I want this font to be Bell MT. So I just type B. Rather than scrolling down looking for it, I just type B. This is Bell MT. I want it to be bold, and I want it to be size 16. This is the way it will look, and I click OK. My personal quote. And I want the font color to be I want the font color to be red. I want the font color to be green. So I click that, green, my personal quote. So it looks like this. So it looks like this. Now, what I want to do is that when I run this, when I click on my personal quote, now, what I want to do is that when I run it, you won't see my picture. But when I click on my personal quote, you will see my picture and you will see the quote here. That is what I want to do. So let me close this. So we have done this too. We created the user interface and we've set the properties. Now we have to go and write the program code. When you want to write the code, like I said, when I load the form, I don't want to see this picture when I load the form. So I just click on the form. You can double click on the form. And here you have the code window. This is what you call the code window. As you can see, you have a public class, form 1, and you have an end class. Here, there is something you want to we want to discuss. A common type of procedure is what we call a sub-procedure, and some textbooks will call it a subroutine. You see it by this sub, private sub, end sub. As you can see here, this is form 1 _ load. If form 1 is loading, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? That is what it means. So this is called a sub-procedure or subroutine. Now, if we go back here, we will talk about variables, and when we talk about variables, we are talking about a special container that is used to hold data temporarily in a program, and you use the word dim to create a variable. You use variables to store file names, output, input, property values, and the rest of them. But I see that we probably wouldn't make use of variables here. Okay, let's go back to this now. This is my picture. Remember, the name is picture box 1. Just remember the name. This one is label 1. The name is label 1. And the text, of course, there's no text. This is where I want my label to appear. Now, I wouldn't want to use label 1. I can go ahead and use display label. I want to, or I can use a display label to display my quote. Okay, you can always change it. Like I said, it's either you press enter or you just click. If you click here, it comes, it saves it. When you change the name or the text, you either press enter or you just come and click here and it will change it. So this is my display label and this is my personal quote, button 1. Let me name it as quote button, and I press enter. Now, this is what we call camel case letters, camel case, whereby you start is more than 2 words, but there is no space. Remember, there's no space when you're naming it. You start it with a small letter for the first word, and the second word is a uppercase letter. It's an uppercase letter. I use this word camel case, this display label. Now, there are so many things to learn in VB, and before we finish this, I will show you where to get resources on my website so you can do some more work on your own. Now, this is a simple project. It's just simple application that just to explain some things to you. Okay, I will now click again, and this is when the form loads. When the form loads, I want this picture box 1 to disappear. So as you're typing it, it comes up. This is what we call IntelliSense. Okay, I want picture box 1. You press it, picture box 1 dot visible. You want it to be false, equal to false. See that? One good thing about VB is that some other programming languages you have to use a semicolon to end your code. That marks the end of a code, but VB you do not. And here, let me also talk about here. Here you can also change whatever, this tells you the objects we have. This is the form 1. We have this objects, display label, picture box 1, quote button. And you can also do a declaration of what you want it to be. Okay, you can set that here as well. Okay, we have not saved this project. That's why we still have asterisks. I will show you how to save it as we move on. So I want this, that when this form loads, I want this to be false. So this is what I mean. I just click, if I click start debugging F5, when the form loads, do you see any picture? No, it has disappeared. So this is the code I used, that picture box 1. Remember, the name is picture box 1. Remember, if you click on it, that's the name. You must use the name. If you don't use the name, then it won't work. You have to use the name. If I want, I'll remove picture box 1. I can say my picture. I can name it my picture. Press enter. So when you do that, when you come here, it changes it to my picture right away. Dot visible is false. See that? This is part of being IntelliSense, Okay, that is when the form loads. That it will be visible. It won't be. It will be false. Now, but I want, when I click on this button, I now want my picture to be visible, and then I want my quote to come up in this display label. So if we point at this, what is the name of this? This is the quote button. So I want, when I click on it, that's an event. Okay, I double click on it. When I double click on it, it creates a subroutine, quote button underscore click. This means form 1 underscore load. When you're loading form 1, here when you're clicking on the quote button, what do you want it to do? I want my picture, as you're typing it, it comes up, which is great. Dot visible comes up. When it's highlighted, just press the tab key. And you want it to be, when you selected, you want it to be true this time, true. Okay, and you click here, it spaces it. So you want, when you click on that, to be true. So let's test it. You know, each one we do, we kind of test it so you can see. So let's run it, start debugging. You run it. You don't see anything when it loads, but when you click on my personal quote, you see that it comes up. Now, the next thing, then you close it. You close, or you stop debugging. The next thing I want to do is when I click on this, you know, double click on it, it still comes back to this, is that I want the my quote to come up in the display label. Okay, so I will come here and I'll say, okay, what is the value for my quote? What is the name for that, for this label, display label? So I will come here and I'll say, when I click on this quote button, display label, it's highlighted. I press the enter key right away. I want it to be equal to, I have to put a quotation marks. Okay, I have to put a quotation marks to begin and end it. So let me put these two quotation marks to begin and end it. Okay, then I want to put, because I want my quote to also be in quotation mark, I also want my quote to be in quotation mark. So I just use a single quotation mark. I just use it to begin my quote and end my quote. And what is that, my quote? If you can remember my quote, if you go to my website, you will see it. Just go to google.com or bing.com, type in Samuel Chukwuemeka. And of course, the first link is my site. And you will see my quote. The joy of a teacher is the success of his students. So I want to use this quote. Now, as you can see, because I've clicked out, it is highlighted. It is this. Anytime you see this line, that means there is something that you need to do that you have not done. Okay, and if you point your mouse at it, it tells you what you need to do. Okay, but you are good if you don't have any lines. If you run this now, there will be build errors. If we decide to run this now, we will see build errors, and that means your project is not working. If you want, we can do it. If you run this now, you know, it tells you there were build errors. Would you like to continue and run the last successful build? If you click no, you will see the problem here. And when you double click on it, it tells you where the problem is. That's one thing about VB. Now, when you fix it, this will go. So let's fix this, okay? I will say here, the joy of a teacher is the success of his students. And then I will put full stop, and this is a single quotation, and then I put Samuel Chukwuemeka. Okay. I will now bring this closer and bring this closer. Because there are build errors, it says here, string cannot be converted to that with system.windows.forms.label. So we have to use this display label dot text because it's a text. Okay? We use display label dot text, and when you fix the build, these errors go, and it tells you 0 errors. Okay, you can go ahead and close this. There's no errors now. So when I click on this button, my picture will appear and my quote will also appear. So I start debugging, you see, and immediately I click my personal quote. Tells you that the joy of a teacher is the success of his students. Now let me go back, and this form, let me just reduce it a bit, and let me also You know, I would like you to you know, to do the design well. If you run it, I would like you to make sure it looks nice. Click on it, and there it is. You know, so you click on File, and you click on a Save form1.vb as. When you click on it, you see the path. Okay, I don't want this part at all. I want to save it on my desktop. And my desktop, it says form1. I don't want it to be, I can change the file name. I want it to be personal quote. That's what I want it to be. And I want it on the desktop. But before I do this, I want to create a new folder. So I don't want, you know, I want my desktop to be neat. I want all my VB projects to be arranged in a folder. I click on New Folder, and I click on a Visual, I name it Visual Basic Projects. I double click, and then it now goes to Desktop Visual Basic Projects, and I want to save it as personal quote. I now save. So it has saved, okay? And once you finish, you can just click on File and exit, or you can just close it. Save, yes. Do you want to save or discard to the current project you want to save? Okay, so I have my Visual Basic projects here. Have it here. Right here. Personal quote 1. If I want, anytime I want to get it, it is here already. So if I want to get it, I just click on it. And you know, we have done this one, right? The program code. That's what we did. I click on it, and if I want, assuming I don't want to see opening everything up, you know, I just want to run the code. So under personal quote 1, I double click on it. If I want to open up the project, I'll click on this. If I do not, I still open this personal quote 1, and I go to the bin file. Then I go to the debug file. When I go to the debug file, this is all I need, personal quote 1 application. When I double click on it, it gives me this. And when I click on this, it tells me that right away. So this is the file that, this is the actual file that I will need, because I will just run your project and see whether it works. But you will still have, I will still need the entire project to kind of see your codes. And the entire project is, you know, just this one. That's what I need. But you know, so that I can get the one. But if you want to kind of send somebody your project right away, you know, and you don't want to waste time, you just go to bin debug, and this is what you need here to send to the person. Once you send this to the person, anywhere, any computer at all, any system at all, or even Mac, you know, he will just save it, run it, and when he runs it, he will just click on this, and your project will run. Okay, that is what we are going. That is, I think, as we do some more work, we shall look at other things that we need to learn. There are so many things we need to learn, but this is just the beginning. Okay. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Before we go, when you go to my website, you click on my picture to enter the site. Click on technology. And when you click on technology, you click on Visual Basic. Visual Basic right here. When you click on Visual Basic, under the videos, I will be putting the videos here under the Visual Basic projects. And the notes, I will put the notes here, and the resources. Resources, you will see Visual Basic library functions here. There is something else I want to do before I go. Let's go ahead and do that, if you don't mind. I go back to my desktop, pull up this project, pull up the project. Now, this is the one I need. Microsoft Visual Studio Solution. This is the project. Click on it to open it up. And you see your code window, you see your design window. Okay, let's say I want, also when I click on this, I want to hear a sound from your computer. Okay, I will just type a beep, beep, and then I put this. If you look at it, it says sounds a tone through the computer speaker. So when you look at the library functions, you see a lot of these. Okay, and of course, once you do that, you now need to save all. You can just save all by clicking on this. That's all. Save all. Or when you run it, and guess what? See? Did it beep? Yeah. All right, folks. We will do more. Watch out for other videos. Thank you for listening, and you have a good day.